These bucket policies are really, really important. So when you're using IAM, and you should, the IAM role is going to determine the access to the bucket itself. But IAM is another service, and things can get added to it without you knowing about it. Also, bad guys can do things like change what IAM roles they're using. So it's not adequate to think that your IAM role that you attach to that compute instance to talk to the S3 bucket is good enough. You also want to do as much kind of final line of defense work as you can using the bucket policy. By the way, this is also where you would typically do things like grant access to public blocks of IP addresses and so on. I'm just going to briefly show you how you would restrict. Remember I said we only, oh, I went too far. We only want stuff inside this VPC to be able to talk to that bucket, right? Well, you see right here, this is what's called a VPC endpoint. VPCE TAC la 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 debc0. Over here, you can see in my code editor, I am saying that we should deny everything unless it is coming from that VPC endpoint. So we now have two of the layers interacting here, right? The layers we have are we have the IAM role, and in this case, we have this EC2 instance, it could be anything, it could be any kind of compute, is running using this S3 read-write IAM instance profile, okay? So it is operating with credentials that should give it read-write access according to IAM to that S3 bucket. Now, because it lives, it is connecting to that S3 bucket. You can see it here on the Fugue viz very simply through this endpoint. That's where it's reaching out to it. The IAM permissions will say yes, will say allow, because it has those permissions, as I just showed you. And then the bucket policy will then be analyzed, and it will also allow, because it will find the condition source VPCE of this string. And this is an important thing to understand about these 5 layers of security, is they are always going to sort down to least privileged. So you put another way, as you go through these 5 layers, if you hit any deny, it will fail. So what does that mean? What that means in this case is, let's say a bad guy got in to this EC2 compute instance and collected credentials for the S3 read-write IAM role, which is entirely feasible. If they can break into there, they can probably get the temporary rotating credentials, right? And then they go and use those from somewhere on the internet to access that S3 bucket to suck all the data out. Well, if that bucket policy weren't there, they would be able to do that. But because we're going to put that bucket policy on that bucket, they'll get a deny, right? Because the bucket policy at the end says, hey, unless it's coming from this endpoint, deny it. There's tons of stuff you can put in bucket policies. You can put time constraints. You can put all kinds of different principles in there. They're very, very powerful. You should always, always, always have bucket policies in addition to IAM, even in use cases that are purely private.